struggling to make sure that the cash flow worked through September to get into October this year.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem.
On the overages, this is the first time we've had this many departments.
Yes, ma'am. I believe so. This is a little bit higher than what is typical.
And Mr. City Manager, what are we doing to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future?
Well, I think it's been said that we have an ordinance, a process, and we've got to hold, at least I know in the general government departments, we're going to hold them to the process, and if we know that they are going to go beyond, as in IT, we're going to bring it to you in advance, and you knew that was going to happen. So in past years, we've never had, as I can recall, more than 3. Mm-hmm. This year is a different year. It's a unique year, but those in the general government area are things that we brought in advance. But we're going to hold departments to the process. I can't speak for elected officials or other folk, but in the general government portion, the non-elected officials and so forth, we're going to do what we got to do.
How many of them were over in general government that were not previously approved by council?
The only one was Public Works. It was $19,907. Part of the issue with Public Works is the last month of utility bills doesn't come in until the end of July. And so at that point, at the end of June, we really anticipated Public Works to be within budget. And when the final bill came in for the Georgia Power is what kind of pushed them over slightly.
And of course, in utilities, it's something we can't control, and the utilities for various city buildings occupied by various departments comes out of the Public Works budget. And so $19,000, but that has not happened in the past, and hopefully it will not happen going forward. But utilities is something you got to have your lights on.
And I know that Public Works has been trying to do some energy efficient changes within the government buildings, different lighting, automated on-off switches in the restrooms so that the lights just don't stay on. So they are trying to make improvements to the energy efficiency so that we, because utilities, electricity is outside of our payroll, is our #1 expenditure for the city.
So, and maybe you can put it back up. So Public Works was the only government office or department that was over without council approval, and that was a result of, I guess, an inaccurate calculation of what the utilities would be for the entire year. And
I wouldn't say an inaccurate calculation, because I wish I knew in advance what it was going to be at my house for the year, but I just don't know, but I can project, and so
okay.
we can project high, or we can base it on last year's trend plus what they say the utility increase is going to be, which is what we do. But we've got to work with departments to make sure that they are doing everything within those departments to conserve energy. And the Civic Center did an excellent job with it.
Right.
They are a great example to point to, and others got to do it. But I don't know that it was inaccurate. It's just that it's hard to budget for and be exact.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
And
then the others. So that was one general government office or a department that did not come forward to get council approval. The others were 4 others that were offices, and one was related to the state mandate.
That's correct.
And that was the probate court. That was a law change.
That was a law change that was presented to council, but not necessarily by the probate court judge. I made a presentation to show the impact that it was going to have to those particular offices.
Okay.
And the citizens need to know that too, because those state and federal mandates are something we have no control over. When they say do it, we have to do it.
Absolutely. And the probate court did offset some of that expense, but as a very small department, it's difficult. Probate court's budget is just over $400,000, so they did absorb some of that, and they were over budget slightly due to that particular mandate.
Okay. And what else? What were the others, Mayor Pro Tem?
The others included Clerk of Superior Court, Sheriff, and Recorder's Court, which is not an elected office, but that is a requirement to have a court reporter in Recorder's Court. And the judge did notify the Finance Department that he felt like he was going to go over in that particular area, and we thought he was going to make it, but he was over slightly in that particular line.
And what was that variance?
4,709.
Okay. And that goes back to your estimate, trying to estimate right on point. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, is that good for you?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Davis?
This may be a little premature from a question standpoint, but in respect to FY15, Madam Mayor and the City Manager, I know that you just presented the overages and where we're at in our budget today. It's 56 days as far as the fund balance goes. I know that the administration, that there's an ordinance on the books and a law that says that we have to come up with a plan to get us back over 60 days. And I believe that's within a year. It would 15, is 15 going to be something that we can anticipate that's going to carry over and affect the FY16 budget coming over or the upcoming budget? Are there going to be any adjustments to that, or is it just FY15 is going to have to be written off at 56 days at this point?
Well, I'll yield to our Deputy City Manager of Finance for that, but it's definitely going to have an impact on next year's budget. Over the years, as you know, we've been able to look to fund balance to help balance the budget going forward to the upcoming fiscal year. We don't have that cushion. We can only project on the growth in the digest, and it has been flat. And so we've been able to support some economic development things, projects out of fund balance. So it's definitely going to have an impact and effect, and I think we're going to have to look at the upcoming budget in a different way.
Hey, Councilor Davis, we have had a plan now for, 5 years, 4 years, whatever it is, and they're set out in the mayor's recommended budget letters. And so one was we reform pension and save about $1.5 million a year, sometimes $700,000 a year, depending on what it was. We reformed health insurance, which saved us $4.5 million a year, and other cuts that are set out in those budget letters. So all of that has been a plan to get us back on, and frankly, fairly radically reduced the use of fund days. We were using fund days, how many regularly with budgets when I came in?
Probably 8 days.
8 fund days a year, just like that. And so we've now, pulled that down just because the revenue, required us to, and made those other adjustments. So that's been the plan, and obviously we're going to have to continue to look at any systemic efficiencies we can get, which will mean changing the way we do business, just as the health insurance issue did and the pension reform did.
And Mayor, I'd like to comment on that.
Sure.
That's, it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Without those changes, I would fear where we would be today.
Mm-hmm.
I can't guess the amount of days further we would be below, but I think the citizenry and the government, our staff, and on the operations side can see the impact of these changes that were needed, and without them, I think we would be at a greater loss in revenue today and greater stress on the fund balance.
Well, our good friends at the Naval Museum, $300,000 a year was what we had done. It was tough. We sat here and listened to them. That was really tough, that we had to do it. All right. I guess that's it. Thank you, Pam.
All right, if there are no other questions on that item, we will vote next week at 5:30. And the last item relates to the IT reclassifications. This is about 5 reclassifications that are set forth in this ordinance. I know Mr. Tolley is here. Are there any questions on that from council?
Let's see here. We've got Counselor Thomas.
These changes are almost $20,000. Can you remind me where that money is coming from? Is it already in the budget, or how are we going to come up with that $20,000?
It is already in the budget. I had several long-term employees leave, and the difference in their pay and the base pay allows this to actually save money.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay. That's a resolution?
No, that's an ordinance.
That's an ordinance.
An ordinance. Okay, I'm sorry.
We'll vote on that at 5:30 next week.
Okay.
Okay, our last item is a resolution. This is a special exception use request for the church at 5301 Sidney Simons Boulevard. It's recommended for approval.
We've got a motion and second for approval of the resolution of special exception use. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I will cue the system for your electronic votes, and you can begin voting. Great. That concludes voting, and it does pass. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mize, that has been approved. Thank you all for being here. Mayor, we need an executive session to talk about potential litigation and acquisition, disposal of real estate, if time permitting. That's all we have.
Okay, and we do have one item, a rescission of a resolution, I think, sponsored by Councilor Pops Barnes. Isn't that correct?
That's right. We had that on the city manager's
Oh, okay.
agenda, but we can
Okay,
take a
all
vote
right,
now
good,
or
good. I
later.
just didn't want to skip over it. Okay, Councilor Thomas.
Mayor, I would like to ask the city attorney to bring an amendment to the ordinance dealing with the airport zone to include that if a grocery store is located in that airport zone, they are eligible for an off-premise alcohol license. This is one of the issues that has been brought to our attention, and I'd like to have an ordinance, hopefully at our next meeting, an amendment to that ordinance to allow grocery stores. If we need to do something that says, you know, so much a percentage of your gross sales comes from groceries, that's acceptable. But I want to look at an amendment that will allow grocery stores to have off-premise licenses if they're in that airport zone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Baker.
I think I asked the city attorney about that, and you indicated to me that that would not work. I thought it had to be on the property. Is it? I can't remember what we discussed. We discussed something
That's
about
been
that.
so long ago, we'll have to look back and research it.
Okay. All right.
But
And
we'll do what we can. If there's a way we can accommodate the grocery store.
Well, I just think we need some information. I'm not worried about it really an ordinance amendment just yet. I'd like to have some discussion about it and see what our possibilities are.
Okay.
I know they might be anxious, but I need to know if it's going to impact other places. And you know, anytime we impact the alcohol ordinance, it raises a lot of concerns to a lot of councilors. So if we could just
right now you've got an on-premises zone around the airport perimeter for certain on-premises categories they
right
can
on
locate
premises,
in.
that's what we
So,
talked about. That's what we had talked about. Right.
Of course, this would be an expansion, but we'll look at that.
Right.
and-
So if you go to off premises, what else does it impact? I guess would be the next question.
Right,
Just
we'll
for
have to get with
information.
Ms. Ivy and look at
Right.
all that.
Yeah, finance will need to look at that.
Okay.
All right, we've got Councilor Thomas.
And my request is not a blanket off-premise exception. It is specifically for grocery stores.
Okay. And
And
Counselor,
I think if we can get the city attorney to do what he needs to do and bring us something back, then we can have a conversation. It would be on first reading at any rate, so.
But you do get into issues about square footage or what type,
Whatever,
what makes you a grocery store, what
whatever it
doesn't.
takes.
There's a lot of that we need
Yeah.
to
okay.
see if it would work. Okay, thank you.
All right. Looks like the city attorney has that as a referral, and it'll come back. That concludes the city attorney's agenda. We're going to move now into the public agenda. Clerk, Madam Clerk, I know there were two items here. We always try to have staff available when there's going to be a particular item, but I don't see the police department here. Were they not notified? Okay, all right. Okay, we will first call up Mr. Reginald Radney, who would like to speak about injustice remedy. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. It really brings me no pleasure to have to be here again before this council. I've come here on 2 other occasions about the same matter, and I was absolutely ignored. I've contacted many of you directly, Mimi Woodson, Ms. Mayor, Mr. Fay, directly about some incidents that are taking place in this community. I don't want anybody to misrepresent me, my character, my race, my gender, or anything else while I'm up here. And if you will allow me to have these few minutes to exercise my First Amendment right to petition the government with complaint and grievance about legitimate issues that impact this entire community. It's not just about me, and it's not just about the money. It's about harm, it's about disrespect, and it's about public integrity. I don't know any of you people personally. I have asked for nothing from the governance. I owe no one in Columbus anything, and I have been harmed. And to come before this council and be left and ignored with absolutely no formal response is absolutely unacceptable. However, I do have a public responsibility to show the students and the leaders of the future of this community how to take a proper action to address their grievances in the public. So do not misinterpret my intention. And if you have any questions about my intention, please tell me. An injustice occurred in the area of 27th Street where my uncle lives. The residential area is one of the worst in the community. Prostitution, drug dealing, out in the open immorality. And I'm one of the most open-minded people in the world. I'm an American artist. I'm not here to promote me. My uncle's home is in the condition that is unlivable. The police are supposed to service this area and come in there and help us restore peace and order, because my uncle is an older man and they're absolutely running over him. It is unsurvivable. It's uninhabitable, and without me, it would be a terrible situation. If you guys will, there is some video posted of some of the incidents that I called for the police for on YouTube. And if you go to YouTube and type in Reggie Radney, those 27 videos are just a fraction of some of the things that are going on there, so you can see the nature of why I called the police into the area. Because my uncle is just getting run over. It's terrible. Homes being burned down, women being raped and violated, and what have you. I have personally made sure that crime was reduced in that area no less than 75%. For the first time in years, children can come outside and play, and you can hear them sound like community over there. When police officers come into a scene and attack the people that are doing something about a problem in an area that it seems like nobody cares about, that is a problem. I don't see anything in the budget that was up there that suggests any effort has been made whatsoever to put anything into that area. I cleaned those streets on my own free labor. I talked to those people myself. I help those children and do everything that I can to just try to restore peace. An officer came into a scene after I called because of some terrible problems involving mental illness and drug addiction, where my uncle was literally being abused, and you can see some of the details about that. Let me just say this in the midst of this. I'm supposed to represent our law enforcement system. It's the responsible thing to do. Most officers in this city have not brought any harm to me or tried to do anything to anybody else. But the few that have make an ugly depiction of every law enforcement officer in this community and around the country. And if an officer deviates from public procedure to intentionally inflict harm upon a citizen when they didn't have to, when they induce it, that's a crime against the people, and that officer has to be consequenced. I brought it to the attention of the representative of the area, and I was accosted right here on this floor, paralleled with Mildred Upshaw, a dead woman who she called the Bird Lady. That's disrespect. That's personal. My gender was attacked right here on this floor. If you guys want me to stop, I will. May I continue?
That's your 5-minute warning. You have 5 minutes left, and then it will be cut off just because it's the same rules for everybody.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that you guys understand why I'm here.
Go ahead.
I emailed some people, including you, Ms. Mayor. You cannot ignore a reasonable call from a citizen when there are legitimate imminent dangers in your community. Now, the main thing that I'm upset about is the loss I have incurred. When you are an entertainer, or you're in the creative arts or any other profession, your image is what you're banking your life upon. House Bill 845 was on the floor of the Georgia Assembly. It prohibits people from taking depictions that the police obtain for identification to sell to publications and put on the internet to disparage people adversely. That impacts you economically, socially, racially, and everything else. This officer knew that House bill was on the floor. They took me down, arrested me, cited me, put my picture in a profile, and when you dial up my name, even though I'm completely innocent, it depicts me as a person who did something I never did. The officer called me ugly names. You will see nothing in the police report that shows that he ever responded to the call because I was the one that called him. And if I'm the person that called you and there's no indication in the report that you ever even responded to the call, how can I be wrong for coming before you to ask for service? Here's why. If you contact the police chief and they send you back to the same source of the problem, that's a conflict of interest. If I tell the police chief, if I tell the Public Safety Advisory Committee, which is in the police department, that's a conflict of interest. So I came before you as the council to help me find remedy for the loss that I have incurred, because nothing has improved as a result. It is very difficult to be in this community, and I'm trying to do what I can. This atmosphere inside this place is entirely different than what a lot of people are experiencing out there, is what I referred to. And what I wanted to do was try to find a way to have some private remedy, or public remedy if you chose, in a mediation of some kind, to talk to me about what we can do to correct this problem, rather than exacerbate it and portray the town adversely off of my anger because of what the officer subjected me to. And if you guys will work with me, if somebody will talk to me and provide some type of formal response, because I came to you in June of 2014, people were being killed by police officers that act this way all around the country. I came to you for remedy. So I'm asking you, somebody, do something other than ignore it, because I have been violated. And I don't want to disrespect any member of this council, any member of the police department, or what have you. I'm a straightforward person, and I want everybody in this community to see what I am for real, themselves. These depictions with these mug shots can lead you to an awful class action lawsuit that can deplete a lot of economics, and we already have economic troubles. Somebody talk to me.
Okay. Mr. Radney, a couple things. I asked, the police department was supposed to be here, but for some reason was confused on the time, thought it was an evening meeting, but in any event, the only complaint they have on hand is the complaint which you stated related to the fact that upon arrest, your picture, which was taken, mugshot, which was taken by the Sheriff's Department, was posted on the Sheriff's website and was then downloaded by a local newspaper that then published it on the Internet. And that is the Sheriff's Department. That's an independent elected official, and that's why this body can't direct what he does, and it is governed by law, as you referred to a particular House bill. So his publication of those photos and the way in which he uses those photos and other citizens may have access to those photos is governed by state law. So we can't direct that access, that posting, because of the nature of the independent elected official and because of the nature that he's governed by state law, not by city ordinance. So I know that was one of the issues that you had complained about to the police department, and I think the reason why you're frustrated is that it's simply outside their jurisdiction. They don't control that at all. The police department doesn't comply.
If I may.
Wait, hold on a second. The police department does not control the posting of those photos, nor do they in any way control the dissemination of those
If I may,
photos.
the police department was responsible for it being possible for me to be at the sheriff's department, which precipitated that photograph being taken. If they had followed procedure, if no one had violated anybody, if they had not contributed to that harm, I would have never been in the sheriff's department. The police department does, in fact, bear some responsibility in this.
Then what happens when someone is arrested? Because, as you can imagine, there's all sorts of varied circumstances under which someone might be arrested. It then goes to the court system, which is a separate branch of government. And the court system hears your defense, as you've stated. This was unfounded. I wasn't due to be arrested. I committed no crime. I have a claim against these folks because they didn't do things right and so forth. So that's handled by the judiciary. However, if a police officer violates protocol or procedure or state law or anything of that nature, then of course we take disciplinary action against police officers all the time. Everything from suspension to requiring retraining to dismissal or the loss of their
so
job.
what happens if they're ignoring your request, if they're ignoring your complaint and you brought this to their attention,
Right.
they're ignoring all the calls to the area, and there's harm that has occurred, what happens, Ms. Mayor?
Okay, this is, from my information here, is that there was no complaint related to a violation of procedure of the arrest of the police officer. The complaint was related to the posting of the picture by the sheriff's office.
Where did
That's
that
the
come?
formal
Where did the
complaint.
information you come from?
I'm getting my information from the police department.
So if you haven't received any information from me, how
Well,
can
all
you
I need
validate?
to do is see the complaint that you filed. We have various ways in which anyone can file a complaint. It's on the website. You can go to columbusga.org/CPD, our police department, and...
Has the chief informed you that I gave him information about it?
No, the only thing that we have is your complaint related to the sheriff's department.
I actually...
So if there's a complaint related to violation of police procedure, I'm not getting that information. I can certainly look into it and see what actions were taken. But we do have a professional standards office. So any complaint, any formal complaint or informal complaint, which relates to the activities of a police officer in the line of duty, is taken up and reviewed by not only his immediate commanding officer and his chain of command, but by our professional standards department.
And you are the director of the public
I
safety...
most certainly am.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Is this not a public record?
This is public record. Yes, it is.
Is this not a venue for complaint before the council that funds the Public Safety Committee and the Police Department?
Well, it's one avenue, most certainly, but
Yes,
now in
it
order
is.
to get it into the proper venue, I have to convert your complaint here today, which, by the way, you provided no specifics whatsoever. You're very upset about it, and I respect that.
I'm not
But you
upset
didn't
yet.
provide anything that I can use on the dates and...
I'm not upset.
Yeah, but nevertheless, in order to investigate, if it's a concern to you, then we have to know some specifics about it, and so I need some sort of formal complaint. Now, you can do that
I
if
came
you-
before this
if you
council-
provide it. Excuse me, sir, you just can't continue to interrupt me. If you provide it in the form...
Mayor, you
of-
can't just say whatever you
Okay,
want
sir,
about me.
I'm going to turn off the microphone at this point. We've given you your 10 minutes. If you would like to either put some specifics in writing, to me, you can do it in an email. You can also go online and at columbusga.org/police, And then you can file a formal complaint there, and it'll be handled through that process.
And so I'm supposed to
Okay.
just accept what is transpired?
No, I've just provided you the outlet that you need to follow. So that will be all. Counselor Barnes would like to make a comment, and then we will hear from Counselor Woodson. Counselor Barnes.
2 comments. Call me, 1, and I just want you to listen to what she's saying. Right now, you've already addressed it, and everyone sees it. Right now, you've accomplished what you need to do. So while you're ahead, you call me afterwards. You got my phone number?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want you to call me, because I wasn't here. I forget where I was at. I was out of town. But you need to call me. Okay, but right now, so it won't be adversarial here, because your purpose is to present information. So you're good to go. Right now, you're good to go. So don't turn it to be an adversarial thing, but I want you to call me.
Okay. All right, and we have Counselor Woodson.
City Attorney, I have a question. I guess it's a legal question. That's why I'm asking you. This gentleman said that his photo was placed once he got arrested, which that's a normal process. But he said that he was not guilty. If he was found not guilty in a court system, is there a process that he should have been taking in order to remove his photo from that file, even though it's already gone public? But the fact is that if he wanted it to be removed so it does not continue to be public, is there a process?
Now, the only process we're familiar with is what's called expungement of a record, and he would have to go to Superior Court. We would advise him to get an attorney, but can file to get his record expunged if there was truly an acquittal or a not guilty finding by the judge or the court.
Did you know that?
You can go to the sheriff's office and help, but it's not just an acquittal. An acquittal does not expunge. It's an entirely separate process.
It's a separate civil action that you've got to file in Superior Court to get a record expunged, but it can be done.
Okay. I don't want to get into the details. I just want to I don't want to get into the details. I want to make sure that not only our speaker knows, but anyone else that's listening, if they are innocent and they went through this process, then there is a process to ensure that your name will totally be clear, not just going to court and the judge saying to you, you're not guilty. So then the expungement.
Regardless.
Okay.
They're arresting you, putting your names in the database regardless, and then the House bill was passed to prevent people from doing that in the first place. They're arresting you specifically to put the name in the database. It's automated. And it's on multiple sites. It's one of them is a television commercial where my picture comes up and they show me as a criminal. It's libel, defamation, and slander, automated. You don't even have to go to court for it to be on it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see. Counselor Huff.
Question on the floor. If a situation like this occurs and you are innocent, there's no guarantee that you can get your record expunged. You have to have an attorney and all that.
Well, you don't have to have an attorney. We would certainly advise that anybody wanting a record expunged consult an attorney. But it is a civil proceeding, and it's got to go through the Superior Court. It's a normal process.
Yeah. I guess my concern is going through the process. If you were found innocent in the court system, there's not a procedure just to go through the process and clear your name.
If you're found innocent in a court proceeding, that remains a public record on the books unless someone takes action to have their record completely expunged, and that's a separate civil proceeding.
As he goes through the process, is it guaranteed once he goes through the process that he will be expunged?
No, that's up to the court. That's their discretion. They look at the entire record of the person and other criteria in state law.
But there's nothing in the record except it happened, he's innocent, he was found not guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a whole body of law that dates back over 100 years, but people aren't found innocent, they're found not guilty. And so, for various reasons, people want to have access to records of arrests, multiple arrests, things like that, and the judicial outcome of them. And so an expungement is a really extraordinary thing and rarely occurs, and there's state standards for it, and it has to be adjudicated. But you can go through, there has been a somewhat increased leniency for expungement at the state level, trying to help people get their lives back so they can become employed and things of that nature. As you know, you have to list if you've been arrested. And so there's been a little bit of a movement towards leniency, but it is an elaborate process, and you can start it at the sheriff's office. That's one place we've referred people to begin the process.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
okay, let's see, we got Councilor Barnes.
As someone who's been there and done that, call me. Call me. It's not the end of the world, okay? Call me. I know, and you want to say, I know it's aggravating. You're looking at somebody right now.
Yes, sir.
All right, so as someone who's been there and done that, it's not the end of the world. So I know you're upset and you have a right to be, but just call me and I can get you started in the right direction.
I'm not that upset, sir. I'm just trying to get you to understand that
Right.
many people's picture in that database
I know.
is garbage.
And I know it's not right. Yeah, and
And Sheriff Dark took somebody's picture out of that database because he knew it caused embarrassment, and they caught him on it in the press. I'm simply trying to restore my reputation
Right.
and restore what I have lost from this. That's all I want.
you want something, you have a right to that. And if you call me,
I will. I
All right,
will.
call me.
Thank you all for taking time to deal with me today. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have Mr. Marvin Broadwater, a senior, who would like to speak to us about disabled veterans parking. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name is Marvin Broadwater, Senior. I currently reside at 3004 Slippery Rock Court, 31909. First, let's establish that I'm not a disgruntled, displeased, or dissatisfied citizen. I am, however, concerned and troubled with a couple of issues that affect all military veterans and those classified as 100% disabled veterans. These veterans have given their blood, sweat, and tears and truly deserve all of our support, especially from those elected for local, state, and national government. I'm here to inform the City Council of what I believe to be a systemic and problematic issue of great concern. One of my assignments in the military was as an equal opportunity advisor. In this capacity, I had the opportunity to investigate alleged discrimination, hostile work environments, sexual assault cases, etc. This position keened my senses to unfair and unjust practices or procedures. I would like the council to know that I have had two unpleasant experiences with city officials. The first one was with the Tax Assessors Board of not approving a claim for a refund of taxes, as other counties in the state are clearly issuing for their veterans who were unaware of the special exemption for 100% disabled veterans. I'm currently working with the Tax Assessor Board, the Tax Commissioner, and the State Revenue Commissioner and her office to find a resolution to that situation. Secondly, I am also concerned how unfamiliar our local patrol officers' knowledge of the official Georgia Code 40-6-226, which clearly states that any vehicle that has a disabled veteran license plate affixed is allowed to park in a parking spot labeled disabled. As I was recently stopped and detained and asked if I had a placard to park in a disabled park, even though my vehicle clearly had a disabled veteran plate affixed. Thank God, this situation did not turn negative. As I look back on it today, it could have easily escalated, as I felt betrayed from a citizen wearing a uniform that I highly respect. Since 1918, this nation has recognized the many contributions and sacrifices of our veterans, as we are on the eve of our 96th celebration and recognition of our veterans service, it causes me to ponder and pause on how we are treating our veterans. This slide depicts how this area benefits from the military existence in our fair city and region. And that first bullet, $3.5 billion is actually earned or given to Columbus from Fort Benning being here. For the region, which consists of Muskogee County, Russell County, Chattahoochee, it's $5.5 billion. Now, these numbers come from Greater Columbus Chamber of Commerce. Approximately 3,000 soldiers leave this area every single year. One of the things that I noticed about Fort Gordon, at the mall in Fort Gordon in Augusta, they have a special space for veterans to park. Not disabled veterans, just veterans. We don't have that here in Columbus. Fort Benning is the largest base in Georgia. And there are some of the numbers up there. You have 107,627, 27 are active duty military. But look at the retirees, off-post retirees. That number is over 30,000. And as I said, Fort Benning is the largest base that we have in Georgia, but it's also the 5th largest in the Army. I have been told that the city has a great working relationship with Fort Benning. I know I have 5 more, and I will be finished, I promise you. I've been told that the city has a great working relationship with Fort Benning. While that may be true, at the top of the relationship pyramid, it is not true at the bottom, where most disabled veterans reside. This seems to be the sentiment of most military members and retirees living in this area that I have spoken to. It is for these reasons I am here to ask the city to create an office that will act as a one-stop shop, if you will. In other words, a liaison for the military. That includes active duty or any veteran deciding to stay in this area. Also retired military members. This office could be manned by a retired military person, and to make it cost effective, make it a part-time position. Maybe open it only 3 days a week. The office could also assist city officials with military colloquialisms that are germane to the military. And by that I mean most of you wouldn't know if I said, let's go to the S2 office.
Military language.
Or go to G6. Let's go to G6.
Right.
Or if I said, Mr. Broadwood is the purple suit of the day. Or if I said Cat 3. Or we have another term that we use. It's called HUA. Most folks don't understand what that means. But the office would be the liaison for the city and the soldier. You have city officials that will be able to call the office. You have soldiers that will be able to call the office. And sometimes this helps when we need to navigate that maze that we have in all cities. Again, I say thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. And please don't forget to go out today and buy a green bulb. Put that bulb on your porch, somewhere in your house, and make sure you honor all veterans tomorrow. If you see a veteran, say thank you for your service. I thank you. Subject to your questions or comments, that ends my presentation.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Broadwater, by the way, our system's down once again, so I can't see you. If you'll, Pops is lit up. We'll go with Pops first.
Thank you, Marvin, appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And you covered a lot of information, particularly as far as disabled veterans are concerned. A lot of the points that you brought out, Columbus is a military town. I spoke at the school board last night about one thing I do like about Columbus is that Columbus is veteran-friendly. They realize the sacrifices that veterans make when they put on that uniform. That's preserved in many countless freedoms that we have. And you've been there.
Yes, sir.
I've been there, and sometimes just bringing things to people's attention, it helps, like you're doing now. I'm sure that you will have some of the veterans that might want to just volunteer free of charge, because as you just got finished hearing, Mother Hubbard's covered. It's right now as far as the city is concerned. And there might be someone that might want to volunteer for something like that, myself included, as far as having, because military, there are many military and military families, the spouses of deployed military that have specific questions and concerns that can speak the colloquialism that we as military speak. And so that's a very good suggestion. I'm glad that you brought some of those things. I did see the city manager thinking whatever about while you were discussing, but you brought a lot of really good points to bear here. And I appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, sir.
And especially remind everybody to get a green bulb. That's going to be super important. I'd like to see Columbus lit up, and I know it will be, because it's a veteran-friendly place.
All right, thank you, Councilor Barnes, and I concur. Of course, we do have a great relationship with Fort Benning, but our veterans, regardless of where they come from and what branch of service, and we hope that's reflected at every level of the city. I know when you mentioned this to me, I did mention it to the chief, and I wanted to make sure that our officers are trained to know the law related to disabled, handicap stickers, disabled veteran stickers, and things of that nature. And it does appear there is some weird thing in the law. So they're working on that. It's related to a particular icon, whether a particular icon, and this is state law, not the officer's interpretation of the state law, but whether there's a particular icon on the handicap parking label and so forth. But they're working that out, and so hopefully, yes, sir. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing about that. I just recently helped an organization get their specialty license plate. So I'm very familiar with the Department of Revenue and their office and the tags for the state of Georgia. One of the things that really upset me, Madam Mayor, is when I explained to the officer, and I put in a complaint, just the gentleman before me, but I put in a complaint, talked to Major Hawk, and that complaint is there. But now, the one thing that really upset me, the next guy, his supervisor came out that day, and he said, Mr. Broward, I really don't know the law. That stopped my anger. That stopped me in my track, because he said, I really don't know. And when I was trying to explain the process to the officer, and I mean, many of you know me, I can be a little bit brash, but the one thing I was trying to explain to him is that the DMV, the state of Georgia, has a disabled veteran license plate. Some other states don't recognize our disabled veteran plate. So what the commissioner did and her office, they went ahead and put that emblem on now all of the disabled veterans' plates. So a lot of officers that are coming on to the force, they come on and they see that, and they just think you got to still have that emblem. But you have some that are retroactive. Those plates have been out there for years, and not 20 years, maybe 10 years. So those plates, the DMV did not tell them to go back and get a new plate, because that plate is still legal. Right. So it's just, I think it's as you said, a matter of training, informational. We just got to make sure that we're informed. But then when we're on the street, and this is a great city. Don't get me wrong. Sure. I could have retired anywhere in the United States, but I chose Columbus for a reason. And when I see our veterans not treated like other veterans in other cities are, well, as I mentioned, Augusta, and then there's Peach County. Peach County, on that tax thing, They just give them the money. They give them the refund back. They don't ask any questions. But here, there seems to be some resistance, and we have got to, and like I said, I'm about just informing, and when I see what I think is an injustice, I think about those that are not able to come out here and make a presentation and inform you and pull the law or drive up to Atlanta tomorrow and talk to Commissioner Riley. I think about those, and that makes me, that gives me the fire to do it, because everyone just don't have the time, they don't have the opportunity, they haven't been blessed, so they can't do that.
Yeah.
But I really feel passionate, but like I said, I don't want you to get that, I'm disgruntled with the city, or because we have some great police officers in this city. Great. We have some great police officers. But we still have to make sure that they're trained well. But I do thank you for your time.
Sure.
I'll talk all day, Madam Mayor. You know that.
Well, we appreciate you and appreciate you coming down this important subject. So the Mayor Pro Tem would like to say something. Here you go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you know whether or not anybody else has been ticketed or stopped in reference to the issue with the veterans tag?
I hate making assumptions, Mayor Pro Tem, but
Well,
I would make that assumption that they have if the officer approached me. That means the entire, well, I won't say the entire, but most of the officers just don't know that law. Because when his supervisor came out, he just said, Mr. Broadway, I don't know.
Right, and I know when you came before you said that, but I'm wondering if some correction has been made at the police department since you came before.
Ma'am, I couldn't answer that question, but I can tell you I have called 4 times. I've gotten one voicemail back, and I called him immediately the next morning because the officer said he was getting off. I tried to call Sergeant Sheldon, and I tried to call Officer Thomas Hill, but he works at night, and it's just real difficult to, and I hate just keep going up there. I just hate keep going up there. And I just think
hopefully,
yes, ma'am.
Things have been changed, minds and attitudes. And Mayor, as Public Safety Director, if you could ask the chief if a memorandum can be sent out to all officers as it relates to that law, and that way we know everybody has been notified.
Sure.
And also, Mr. Broadwater, I know later on in the agenda, we're going to be doing a lease with the Veterans Association and the facility on Victory Drive. And I'm hoping that maybe in that facility, they can have somebody who will be able to, all those things that you talk about, the liaison, that's a good place for it to be carried out.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I will follow up with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and Councilor Woodson had a comment.
Mr. Bromer, it's always good to see you.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
thank you. Thank you for the educational piece, because I myself didn't know about that, that one sticker. So I imagine there are a lot of veterans out there that didn't know they can park in a handicapped spot.
ma'am.
So actually, you did 2 great things today. One, you educate us. 2, we're going to follow up on to make sure that something did go out to all the officers. And I'm just not going to repeat myself, because Evelyn went ahead and she hit what I was going to say about the veterans place and so forth. So, and Pop's already hit it about the volunteers, so there's no need. I just want to publicly thank you. Sometimes I think people assume that council knows every single little thing, and we don't. We're part-times, we have other jobs, we don't know everything. When a constituent takes the time like you did to come up and tell us, hey, did you know about this part? I truly appreciate it, because you're not only educating us if we didn't know that information, you're educating the citizens, and you don't really know how many lives you already touch by that comment. So I just want to say thank you, because they already hit it all.
Thank you.
And God bless you and your family.
Thank you, ma'am.
Great. Thank you. Well, I know I see Major Hawk here, and I've already talked with the chief about this issue. So if you would, Major Hawk, just express to the chief that we'll need some sort of memo to go out to the police officers. It's already gone out? Okay. And if you'll just send that to me, and then I can get it to the counselors to see. So I know we talked about it when Mr. Broadwater first brought it to my attention. So thank you. Thank you very much. All right, we have 2 more individuals on our public agenda. However, they are related to a presentation on the city manager's agenda, and in consultation with the city manager, and I believe that the individuals have already been notified, we're going to allow for a staff presentation and then move these 2 individuals to have their public comment afterwards so that it flows better and people are aware. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. It looks like we have one more. We have Mr. Reverend Michael Sherman on the public agenda. Is Reverend Sherman here? Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe we can get him next time. I apologize. I just skipped over that, but we'll get Mr. Sherman next time. So we're going to turn it over, if you'll turn on the city manager's mic, and he'll begin his agenda now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Test. Madam Mayor, as you've indicated, I am going to go to my updates on my agenda, and then I'll come back to my regular agenda. I've got Director Rick Jones here, and he is going to present on tax allocation districts. He's going to present TAD administrative policies, procedures, and process. And this is just an update. At the last council meeting, the City Council actually approved the guidelines and procedures for tax allocation districts. He is just going to go through those and hit some high points and just talk through the process so that those listening by television and those here can fully understand the process. And then, as the mayor indicated, we've got some people on public agenda who will come and talk about some proposed TADs. And so with that, our Director of Planning, Rick Jones.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good morning. I have been given the task and the challenge this morning to go back through the idea of what we're dealing with tax allocation districts. My main objective, well, 2 main objectives I want to leave you with here this morning, of course, is provide you the information that we're talking about dealing with TADs and how they are to come about and how we're supposed to be dealing with them. The other part is to helpfully eliminate some of the anxiety that you may have, that a lot of us have, in terms of how these things are coming about and the time in dealing with that. So that's really what we're trying to achieve here this morning. I'm going to go through it fairly quick here this morning. This is our TAD update. As you've been told now, Council has designated itself as that redevelopment agency for dealing with TADs. That power could have gone to another board, another commission, but for the most part, you've taken that on, and I think that's the right role that should be happening here. This one? Yeah. Development, you've also authorized the Development Authority to go in and issue any type of bond financing when that comes about. And I'll tell you right now, we're not at that point for that to happen from that standpoint, but we have set that mechanism into place here. We have done that from that standpoint. You adopted policies and guidelines back on October 27th. We've made sure that you had another copy of that this morning, of this document here. We will provide also online as well to anybody who wants to look for it. And this sets out really how we are supposed to be guiding and directing and developing these TADs as we go along and deal with the application process itself. Right now, as we know it today, there are 4 TADs that are going to be proposed, and I think there are folks following behind me that will explain that in more detail. They are to be included, though, in what's called 2 redevelopment plans itself, and these are the 4 TADs as we know them again, the 4 being Technology Park, Uptown Columbus, City Village, and the Liberty District. Those are the ones that have potential right now, or at least for consideration, of becoming a TAD at a later date. What you should also understand, though, in developing a TAD itself, there really are 3 steps we have to go through. The first one is it has to be a state statutory defined redevelopment plan. It has to be developed. We're not talking about just coming up with a document that you normally see in other meetings and other sessions. This is actually mandated by the state, and I'm going to show you what is really required and all that to develop that redevelopment plan. It has to be extensive, it has to be thorough in what it looks for in dealing with that TAD itself. It's also got to identify and approve the boundaries of the TAD itself. It But you're going to see in one of these, you'll see a redevelopment area, and then you'll see an actual TAD developed in that. In some cases, you may actually see the redevelopment area be the TAD as well, when it's all said and done. There's a third step in here, which is adopt and approve a project within the TAD. That's when someone comes in and says, I need the financing, or I need some incentives to make this project happen. We are not going to talk about number 3 today. We're not at that stage of the game. We are not talking about a specific project right now and any funding needs they may have or any authorization for that. What we're asking right now and looking at over the next couple of weeks is really just dealing with setting up the redevelopment area itself and approving that plan and developing the area that may become a TAD itself. And that's the only concerns we have. That's the only issues right now that are before you and before us as staff in terms of looking and reviewing that. These two steps, steps 1 and 2, have got to be approved in order to make it effective by December 31st. It's got to be done under state law because of the fact of establishing that baseline, if you want to call it, for the tax assessments in the community as a whole and what we're looking for. There, inside the policies and guidelines itself, there is this statement. It's on page 3 of the document itself. And I don't normally like to read things like this